hustle on, growth mode on. What the hell is wrong with people? I get spammed with cat shit crazy things all the time on my social media. And I realize that this review is late, but it is a massive game, and you know, I didn't have my growth mode on. What's up everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And here at AGR's Pop Culture Reviews, we don't talk about all the shit that we want to do, we just do it. So let's continue on with the reviews. And I realize that this game is late, but this is my official review of Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's take a closer look. For those of you who are fans of the original Red Dead Redemption, you'll know how incredible that game was, but not just because of the great gameplay, the compelling story, but also because it really redefined a genre in video games in terms of how we see westerns. What Clint Eastwood's 1992 masterpiece Unforgiven was to westerns in film and how it really redefined a genre is what Red Dead Redemption was to gaming, and it really made a huge impact. Now first let me start off by saying that I think this is the first time since the original PlayStation where I actually had to load 2 discs, which got me a little bit nostalgic for a little bit. So this game has been nearly 7 years in development, and I have to say it's probably one of the most anticipated titles of the year. As I mentioned before, the original Red Dead Redemption was an incredible game, and personally I was addicted to it. I couldn't stop playing it for months, not only because of the compelling storyline, which was pretty heartbreaking and I have to say pretty ballsy, but the gameplay was excellent. Now one of the biggest fears that I had going into such a highly anticipated sequel is that the gameplay and overall mechanics would be incremental at best. Fortunately, I was wrong about that, and I'm happy to say that Rockstar really redefined what Red Dead Redemption could be. Now, it's by no means perfect, but very few games are, but it's certainly not a clone of its predecessor, which was my biggest fear. So let's dig into all the good and bad of Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, very early on in the game, you realize that you're playing a very different game in a good way, and that's again one of the things that I was worried about. Because of the initial setting, almost immediately, I conjured up nostalgic feelings about Oregon Trail, and that's what you really get a sense of in the first part of this game. I would even be so bold as to say that the beginning of this game is so atmospheric and so isolating that it made me think of the Donner Party, and I really love how they set the tone early on in the game. Now of course I'm absolutely not going to spoil anything here because you do have to experience it, and I'm not going to even talk about the characters because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I do have to say this game was like a love letter to me, especially growing up. I was a huge fan of Sergio Leone films. I really loved the spaghetti western, and I felt like I was playing one in video game form. But the changes to this game are not merely atmospheric, and while the original Red Dead Redemption you were mostly playing as a singular character on a singular adventure, and again, of course, with the occasional help from a secondary character, here you're actually part of an outlaw posse, and that really changes the dynamics, and it's really awesome, guys. What's also very unique about your posse is that they're pretty much morally ambiguous. They're not necessarily good, but they're not necessarily bad either, and I think this makes for much more compelling narrative. I also have to give props to Rockstar. For the amount of characters in your posse, they all have very distinct and unique personalities, and that is awesome. This is all complemented of course by the brilliant and excellent writing. Conversations feel organic among the characters, they feel believable. Most importantly, the motion captures really sync up well. I mean, I felt like I was looking at actual characters talking on screen. The mechanics work very well most of the time. Gunplay is very satisfying in this game, and the weapons are weighty. Whenever you hit a target, you really feel like you hit it. And I absolutely love the destructible environment. It really brought out a smile on my face every time I saw a chunk of wood fly by or a plume of smoke revealing the position of one of your adversaries. It's really cool. Just like in the previous title, you do have a couple of options to change the sensitivity of the aim assist, and I do recommend that you turn it off. Unfortunately, if you have it on, the game is way too easy and there's really no challenge. You also feel much more like a gunslinger once you have it off and you're actually manually targeting. Now, this game also has a few subtle nods to resource management in order for you to survive in the wilderness. For example, you do have to replenish your health and stamina, as it can easily be depleted when you're out in the wilderness so much and exposed to the elements. Now, fortunately within the game you have a number of options in which to replenish these supplies. Most notably is scavenging, and that's probably the easiest way. You can also go into a general store in town and buy these items, but most importantly I think, and it's probably the coolest way, you can actually hunt for these supplies. Now, I know that survival and resource management is a bit of a scary word these days, however it's not nearly as horrible and stupid or intrusive as Metal Gear Survive, but it is part of the overall package and players should just be aware of it. Now, there are a few questionable changes, which I have to ask why they did so, especially given how awesome it really worked in the previous title. The only thing I felt was needlessly complicated in this game was the weapon wheel. It seems like you can't carry more than 2 weapons at a time, and you have to keep going back to your horse to change loadouts, which is really bizarre. The other thing too, and I think Rockstar was aware of it, is that you constantly have somebody telling you what weapon you have to take out from your pack in order for it to suit the actual situation that you're in, which is really bizarre and kind of annoying. I can't count how many times a member of my posse kept telling me to take out the shotgun, over and over again, to the point where I felt like shooting him instead of the people I was about to fight. Of course, one of the more revolutionary and most notable changes in this sequel is the fact that you essentially have 3 camera angles. You have the zoomed out camera angle, the over the shoulder camera angle, very similar to Resident Evil, and of course, first person perspective. And all I have to say to the game developers out there, I really hope you continue this trend. I love having the option of switching the angles in which to play the game. I think it's much more thematic. And of course, in theory, you can play this game entirely in first person. I was enthralled at the fact that I can switch them so easily on the fly, and I have to admit, there are certain scenarios where first person really made it that much more immersive. Now, graphically, this game is absolutely stunningly beautiful, and I've never seen snow look so good. The vast expanses are also awe-inspiring, and I had very few technical glitches given the game and how large it was. That's actually pretty impressive. One of the things that really impressed me about Red Dead Redemption 2 is how incredibly realistic it is, and I'm not just talking about the elements and the atmosphere, but the actual physics involved here. When you're hunting, when you strike an animal, when you get into a firefight, it leaves a blood trail on the snow. Just little subtle details like that that really push this game over for me, and I can't help but just look around and amaze myself and immerse myself in this world. And that of course segues perfectly into the overall sound quality in this game. It is incredible, and if you have some way to do surround sound, or if you have a pair of really nice headphones, you definitely want to play this game this way. The crunch of snow in this game is visceral. The gentle sounds of a streaming river and the animals in their natural habitat make for a symphony of audio goodness. Now, with a game so massive, there are a lot of loading screens, and I have to admit, they take a pretty significant amount of time. But I think Rockstar planned for this, and fortunately, you actually don't mind them, and in many cases you can actually play through those loading screens. They're very cinematic, and I have to admit, I didn't realize I was looking at them after a while because the transitions were so smooth. It seems like every time I play a game, I'm really impressed with the horse riding. It is getting significantly better, and I was really impressed with the horse riding in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but Red Dead Redemption really takes it to a new level. Mounting your horse and riding your steed is amazing, especially given the vast differences between the different biomes, very similar to Horizon Zero Dawn. I loved riding through the countryside, and it's incredibly precise and so much fun. Overall, there is so much more to Red Dead Redemption 2, but I don't want to continue talking about it because it kind of goes into spoiler territory. I will say this game was 7 years in development, and it was totally worth the 7 years in order to really perfect it and refine a very polished product. I highly recommend this one, guys. Just get lost in this world. It's truly awesome. Now, before I go, I just want to thank today's sponsor, FMB Collectibles Incorporated, for making this video possible. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Red Dead Redemption 2. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.